Second Take this week zones in on South Africa. Witness D. Marius van der Merwe was shot dead outside his Brakpan home. Weeks earlier, he had testified to the Madlanga Commission about torture and a death cover-up in Ekurhuleni, naming high-ranking officers. Brumelda Zuma enters parliament for her MK party just days after her half-sister Duduzile resigned amid mercenary allegations. Julius Malema delivers his year-end briefing with characteristic intensity, from assassination to dynastic maneuvers to unflinching politics. This week charts lives, legacies, and power in a nation where every move carries consequence. Welcome to Second Take. The assassination of Witness D. Marius van der Merwe on the evening of December 5 outside his home in Brenthurst, Brakpan, was not merely a personal tragedy, but a devastating proof of how fragile truth-telling is in South Africa, a country where exposing corruption can carry a deadly price. Van der Merwe had spent years confronting illegal mining syndicates, rogue police officers, and politically protected criminal networks. And in his testimony to the Madlanga Commission, he provided damning details about the torture and subsequent death of a suspect in Ekurhuleni in 2022, claiming that suspended EMPD Deputy Chief Julius Mkhwanazi had arrived at the scene and issued instructions to conceal the killing, a claim Mkhwanazi later denied, but which underscored the pervasive culture of impunity and interference in law enforcement. Weeks after he spoke openly about these abuses, van der Merwe was shot multiple times in his driveway while his wife looked on, transforming his personal risk into a national symbol of the deadly cost of exposing entrenched power and forcing the country to confront a harsh reality. Institutions that claim to protect whistleblowers often fail when the stakes are highest. The response, though well-intentioned, revealed the limits of performance in South Africa's political and security structures. National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola visited the family, and this was to brief them on the investigation. Madlanga Commission officials offered condolences, and public statements stressed ongoing inquiries and due process. Yet, all these gestures only highlighted how reactive the state is when a life is lost rather than proactive when it could have been saved. Analysts and journalists immediately began tracing the networks van der Merwe had exposed, linking illegal mining operations, rogue officers, and politically shielded gangs, demonstrating that the danger he faced was foreseeable, not accidental. The assassination forced the Madlanga Commission and the broader public to reckon with structural contradictions. The same system that demands courage from citizens fails to provide it. The institutions designed to uphold law and justice prove fragile or selective, and the rhetoric of accountability often collapses in the face of operational reality. Social media and civil society groups amplified outrage, calling for reforms to whistleblower protection laws and the Protected Disclosures Act, while opposition parties emphasized that the killing was a warning to anyone willing to speak the truth, highlighting that in South Africa, truth-telling remains simultaneously a civic duty and a gamble with life itself. The presence of van der Merwe's family during the shooting made the stakes unbearably personal and morally vivid, transforming abstract debates about oversight and justice into a tangible human cost. And the media coverage of the murder, combined with his prior testimony implicating a high-ranking police officer, crystallized the public perception of systemic failure. The law may exist in statutes, but the enforcement of protections is uneven, and power often shields itself at the expense of truth-tellers. Witness D's death reframed the national conversation around accountability and institutional trust, forcing citizens and officials alike to confront uncomfortable questions about the relationship between political power, criminal networks, and law enforcement. His story became inseparable from the tragic reality of his death, emphasizing that the bravery of one individual can expose the ineptitude or complicity of an entire system. In every gesture following the killing, the condolences, the briefings, the media coverage, the same tension was evident. The state acknowledged the loss without fully addressing the conditions that made it possible, creating a paradox in which grief and accountability coexist uneasily, and in which courage is commemorated more vigorously posthumously than it was protected in life. His assassination stands as a grim lens on South African governance. The public ideals of justice, transparency, and protection clash with the operational reality in which those ideals are selectively applied, and the death of Witness D made that contradiction painfully clear, demonstrating that in a system where truth tellers can be silenced, the cost of accountability is borne almost entirely by the citizen, leaving institutions free to perform concern while the underlying structural failures remain. Ultimately, Witness D's life and death expose a nation wrestling with itself, one that values bravery yet fails to shield it, one that praises accountability yet tolerates impunity. South Africa's parliament has a new member, and the family drama just got a new chapter. Brumelda Zuma, daughter of former President Jacob Zuma, was sworn in as an MP for Umkhonto weSizwe, MK, less than 2 weeks after her half-sister Duduzile Zuma Sambutla stepped down. The timing is hard to miss. One Zuma exits under a cloud of controversy, another enters to make sure the family still has a voice. Politics in South Africa has long been about alliances and legacies, but the Zumas have elevated it to a form of hereditary parliamentary theatre. Brumelda steps into parliament alongside 3 other MK members, all praised for a wealth of experience and dedication. Brumelda herself has a degree in public administration and promises to focus on delivering good public services. That's the sound of bureaucracy meeting dynastic strategy. One can imagine the internal briefing. Keep the desks functional, ignore the headlines, and remember, family comes first. Meanwhile, outside the formalities, her half-sister's scandal looms large. Duduzile resigned after allegations that she tricked 17 South African men into fighting for Russia in Ukraine. The men aged 20 to 39 were reportedly lured under false pretenses, some of them relatives, and are now trapped in Donbass. South African authorities are investigating, and Duduzile insists she thought it was lawful training. A criminal complaint was filed by yet another half-sister, Nkosazana Zuma Mncube. It is almost Shakespearean. Brothers, sisters, and mercenaries caught in a geopolitical subplot while Parliament quietly welcomes a new Zuma to the fold. Brumelda's appointment is a clear signal of strategic family representation. Jacob Zuma's MK party, formed in 2023 after his fallout with President Cyril Ramaphosa, finished 3rd in last year's election, but now sits as the main opposition. That the family retains parliamentary presence while scandals swirl is less about public service and more about ensuring political influence never skips a generation. Brumelda's public administration degree is less relevant than her last name, let's be honest. It is her surname that guarantees attention, not any policies she may introduce. The timing and optics are a masterclass in political theater. One daughter resigns amid mercenary accusations, another steps in calm, ceremonial, with promises to focus on public services. Meanwhile, the allegations, international in scope, legally complex, and morally messy, hang over the family like a dark cloud. One could almost imagine the internal memo. While the headlines scream mercenaries and indictments make sure the Zuma flag waves in Parliament, it is influence packaged with impeccable timing. There is an irony in Brumelda's pledge to focus on public services. It is almost comical in contrast to the whirlwind of family scandals, mercenary allegations, and international legal scrutiny that define her half-sister's exit. The contrast is not lost on anyone paying attention. While one sibling faces accusations that could land her in court, another enters parliament as if the previous chapter never happened. South African politics has always had its dramatic twists, but here, family legacy, scandal, and opportunism converge in full technicolor. The MK party itself benefits from this maneuver. By keeping a Zuma in parliament, the party ensures that its visibility and influence remain high, while the theatrics of Duduzile's departure draw attention away from legislative substance. It is a reminder that in South African opposition politics, name recognition and spectacle often outweigh policy or governance. Brumelda's role is less about serving the electorate than ensuring that the Zuma brand remains firmly planted in Parliament's corridors. Meanwhile, the legal and international ramifications of her half-sister's alleged mercenary recruitment continue. Working for a foreign army without government approval is illegal under South African law. Some of the men involved are family members. Duduzile is also on trial for alleged terrorism-related social media posts during the 2021 protests. Against this backdrop, Brumelda's entry is almost performative, a carefully staged scene where the family maintains parliamentary control while one branch battles scandal. The satire here is thick. One daughter exits under accusations of international mercenary mismanagement. Another enters, hand raised, reciting an oath of office, and the country is expected to treat it as business as usual. The Zuma family demonstrates that parliamentary seats can be inherited almost like heirlooms, and that political influence often travels faster than accountability. The humor is dark, but undeniable. The same bloodline orchestrates both crisis and continuity with uncanny timing. Brumelda's tenure may well be defined more by the shadow of her half-sister than any policies she enacts. Yet she steps in with the confidence of someone entering a legacy already mapped by family drama. Her appointment reminds South Africans and the world that in politics, strategic optics can outweigh substance, and dynastic influence is very much alive. The family's theatrical timing, the legal entanglements, and the ever-present surname combine into a political opera that is at once absurd, compelling, and unmistakably Zuma. In the end, Brumelda Zuma's swearing in is not just about adding a new MP to the roster. It is a study in family strategy, timing, and the resilience of political dynasties. While one sibling navigates allegations of mercenary recruitment and court proceedings, another occupies the stage in Parliament, ensuring that the Zuma presence continues unabated. Politics in South Africa, as this episode demonstrates, is never just policy or procedure. It is spectacle, legacy, and sometimes pure timing. The curtain rises on a new act, and the family drama marches on with Parliament as its stage. Julius Malema's year-end press conference on December 11 felt less like a political briefing and more like the annual pilgrimage to the Church of Revolutionary Optimism by a communist Father Christmas, where the EFF commander-in-chief, dressed in his trademark confidence, performs a spirited bilingual sermon for journalists who long stopped pretending they came for neutrality. Malema insisted the EFF fighters were growing, expanding, mobilizing, radicalizing, and otherwise preparing for the 2026 local government elections with the intensity of a team that believes the trophy is just misplaced, not actually in another league. Then, with a smooth pivot only Malema can pull off, he addressed his firearm discharge conviction, brushing it away with the casual energy of a man who has long mastered the art of framing legal troubles as plot twists in a liberation epic movie, declaring it politically motivated, of course, because in Malema's world, no court ruling is ever just a court ruling. It is either an attack on the revolution, a misinterpretation of the revolution, or a technical delay in the revolution's inevitable victory. But the briefing only became deliciously combustible when he turned to Fikile Mbalula, and suddenly Malema transformed from party leader into political soothsayer, offering a prophecy about the ANC's future with the enthusiasm of someone reading spoilers for a series he doesn't even watch. He described the ANC's National General Council in almost cinematic detail, especially Mbalula's marathon 2-hour-plus address, during which Cyril Ramaphosa sat nearby like a man quietly negotiating with his ancestors about where it all went wrong. And Malema gleefully noted how delegates burst into song for Mbalula, praising him so passionately that Ramaphosa, perhaps fearing that the revolution might start without him, joined in with the hesitant rhythm of an uncle who arrives late to a wedding and isn't sure if the dance is cultural or choreographed. Malema declared, with a mixture of warning and mischief, that Mbalula is ahead. Mashatile is trying to catch up. I don't know how he will get there. Comparing the ANC succession race to a marathon where the runners are exhausted, directionless, and suspiciously fond of tripping one another. And then he issued the line that instantly trended. Mbalula is going to be the president of the ANC if there's no serious intervention to stop him. Have a look.
Mbalula is going to be president of the ANC if there is no serious intervention made to stop him. To stop him. I warned you about this, that this Mbalula, if they allow him to do what he's doing, he's going to lead them. If it was a marathon, Mbalula is ahead. Paul is trying to catch up. Mbalula is ahead. Out of this so-called staged NGC, that gets organized in a manner that it has never been organized. We want to that was Mbalula's show of force. You say it was Cyril's show of force because there are people who said they are going to remove Cyril. Cyril didn't get removed. It was never about that. Mbalula wanted that to show them that he's in charge. You remember, I ran these things in the ANC. We went to the NGC in KZN. We defeated Zuma, both in numbers and policy position. After that, Zuma knew that these boys are going to remove me because the NGC tells you what's going to happen. That's when he expelled us from Mangaung conference. We were expelled because he got a sign. And Gwede told him, it says, they are pretending like they are removing me. They are actually coming for you, and he was right. We're making noise about Gwede, but we're looking for this one. We won in the NGC in Durban. And we got expelled, and that's how Kgalema lost the Mangaung conference. I'm giving you this history for you to be able to determine. Because conference is not won at the conference, it's won before. So, he's going for a kill. He's going to emerge as a president. Unless something drastically happens. Because the naive you guys says, yeah, but you said Mbalula is going to be a president. Look, now he's a president. I'm telling you, what is prevailing now, the balance of forces show that Mbalula is going to be a president. Let me give you the last example. At the NGC, Mbalula addresses for 2 hours 30 minutes, addressing the NGC. The president is sitting here, meaning he's addressing president for 2 hours 30 minutes. That's number one. That's when a man shows you doesn't care about those things. Then make matters worse. When he finishes speaking, they start singing about the Secretary General Mbalula in the presence of the president. What happens? The president is forced by that environment to stand up and sing about Mbalula. You didn't see what was happening there. Unobala, tena sifuna unobala une content Ramaphosa. Nobala. It's supposed to be the other way around. Then Gwede realizes, man, hey, there's going to be a mess here. He tries to stop the song. They sing even louder. And not only louder, go to the podium. The sitting president is made to sing about the Secretary General. And then you must tell me where the power is there. Paul Mashatile, who says he's a contender, he's made to sing about a person he's standing against. Get power, Papa. If you know how it works, that thing. Get power. It's a psychological warfare. You fight in Mbalula, you see those videos, you see the whole conference standing up, singing about this guy, you're like, it looks like this one of ours won't work. Let's join this one of Mbalula. It's psychological. So
Juju sounded less like a critic and more like a man who has not only seen the future but also drafted the soundtrack. But Malema's storytelling doesn't stop at Luthuli House. He always expands outward to global politics, and so he turned his attention to the United States with the familiarity of someone reviewing a restaurant he has no intention of dining at, blaming the deterioration of SA-US relations not just on President Donald Trump, but on the influence of the pro-Israel lobby, insisting that the real tension stems from South Africa's stance on Palestine, which, in his view, has placed the country on the hostile nations list in Washington. He dismissed the Americans' outrage over the controversial EFF recruitment video featuring armed militants, arguing that the clip was simply a convenient excuse for a long-brewing ideological fallout, and then delivered his most viral line of the day.
His attempt at unilaterally inviting and uninviting countries to the G20 simply because of his political interest further confirms the assessment that Donald Trump is the new Hitler that the world is faced with, and failure to recognize this reality will result in devastating consequences for the global political and economic order. The EFF
Malema argued that South Africa needs to brace for a long-term showdown with Western powers and stop seeking approval from countries that interfere everywhere except in their own problems. A jab that landed with the precision of a man who has spent a decade collecting American hypocrisies like fridge magnets. By the time he wrapped up, the 13-minute briefing had already transformed into a full national conversation. Clips circulated across X faster than electricity during peak load shedding. Supporters praised him as a fearless truth teller. Critics accused him of theatrics, and the country settled into its usual posture, half amused, half alarmed, fully addicted to the spectacle. In the end, Malema achieved what Malema always achieves. He inserted himself squarely at the center of the year's final political headline, reaffirming his unmatched skill at blending humor, warning, prophecy, and entertainment into a single performance, and leaving South Africans with the uneasy, exhilarating feeling that whatever happens in 2026, the EFF commander-in-chief will not only comment on it, he will narrate it like a man who believes history is listening. As we close on Second Take, the themes are unmistakable. Bravery comes with cost, influence travels faster than justice, and power is both a weapon and a responsibility. In a country where every act reverberates beyond the individual, this week leaves us with a stark truth. In South Africa, nothing is merely personal and everything is political. Except perhaps this Christmas message from the Marxist Saint Nick himself, Juju Malema. Good night.
Enjoy your festive season. If you finish this festive season, you have never given your old clothes to someone deserving, you must know you are greedy. You're the most useless human being. If you still have clothes that you were wearing at high school in your wardrobe, and when you were young, when there are so many people without clothes, you must know it's not only ANC a problem, you are a problem. If you are going to be having festivities and a meal, if you can't give them some food, invite them over so you can share a meal with the poor of the poorest. Let's make it easy this festive season for the poor. As they see other children shining and other children eating, their pain becomes even more. You lessen it by making them feel they are part of the future of South Africa. You have a problem with their parents, do not have problem with children. Never use children to fight battles. Always protect the children of South Africa. Let's make sure that these children are not subjected to trauma. Let's make sure that these children look to the future with a positive attitude because their neighbor was good to them. I am what I am because my neighbor and neighbors were good to me. And in return, I'm good to them. Let's be good because we don't know what those children of your neighbors are going to become. And when they become something else in future in society, they will remember you. Help those who cannot help you and do not write their names down because you must not remember them. When you remember them, it's because you want to enslave them. You want to make them your slaves and constantly remind them that you have once helped them. Do not do that. Let it be an enjoyable one, even in poverty, in suffering, in unemployment. There is a moment we need to pause and appreciate God for giving us life. Thank you very much.